Hello there, it's Tom here, and this is chapter 33 of Gunnerkrigg Court, Give and Take. Now, sometimes when I'm working on a chapter, even after having decided exactly what I want to write about, and having the script all plotted out beforehand, I can sometimes feel that I'm not quite hitting the mark with a chapter, or not really conveying the point that I'd intended in some way. And it's not until the chapter is completely finished and uploaded online that I can go back and read over it and feel a bit more secure that I'd gotten the message across. And this chapter is the first time I'd really felt that. After the stuff that had happened in the previous two chapters, where Annie was spending time in the forest and then reuniting with Kat at the beginning of the school year, I felt like I wanted to spend a bit more time with Kat and the robot storyline. And I was never too sure if the readers were as interested in the robots as I was, so I was always a bit worried spending a bit of time on them. But I did want to establish and develop Kat's longer-running arc that sort of runs in tandem with Annie's, where she's working on building a new robot and working on new technology, and also the relationship that she has with the robots themselves, namely the research that she'd come across in Diego's old workroom, and how she comes to incorporate that work into her own. So, when it comes to Annie and Kat's storylines, I do treat them as kind of separate. Annie goes off into the forest to deal with her business, and Kat largely spends her time working on her interests in her workshop. And the two of them don't really understand each other's pursuits, but they're still there in a supportive way. And in this chapter, I wanted Kat to take the forefront, and Annie was just there as a supportive role. I guess because I just wanted to show that they didn't have to have a very deep understanding of each other's interests to be supportive of each other as friends. So I suppose one of the reasons I was a bit apprehensive about this chapter is that the stuff that Kat deals with is largely theory, and it doesn't involve a lot of the sort of colourful visual metaphors I can use when depicting Annie exploring the ether and dealing with Coyote and stuff. Kat literally has to spend her time going through old research notes and working in her lab and looking at some of the old robots. And the two of them spend the time talking to each other about how Diego might have come to create these old robots of his and what Kat might need to do in the future to develop her work further. And this was an opportunity for me to show that the work that Diego had done in the past is basically a mixture of technology and essentially magic. And suggesting that Diego's old robots weren't robots at all, but some sort of golem, and then tying that into a modern example. So while a mechanic such as Kat will understand that robots are a lot more complex than just inanimate material given life, with instructions in their software, from Annie's point of view, that really doesn't separate what the robots are from something like a golem that works through some unknown magical means. And that's kind of a point that I've been driving at throughout a lot of the background of the comic. The stuff that Kat does with her technology and her robots may as well be magic in Annie's eyes, because she has no idea how any of it works. And in this chapter, especially this scene here where Kat is first seeing some of the instructional code printed from the robots, is a moment where Kat comes face to face with a bridge that allows her to take that mental leap into understanding something that was keeping her work at a standstill at this point. Now, of course, this is the part of the story where it deviates from talking about technology and into the realm of fantasy, so I can't exactly go into too much detail as to what it is that Kat is discovering and what her revelations are. For me, it was enough to show that, as the character, she's the one that is making that connection, and it's through her own agency that her work, and therefore the plot, is pushed forward. But so Kat makes a few discoveries and figures a few things out, and through that is able to resurrect one of the old robots that they'd found in her workroom basement, something that her mom had never been able to do. And then we go into another part of the story that I was very interested in working in, but again, like I said before, I was really unsure as to whether the readers would find it as interesting as I did. After resurrecting one of the ancient robots, Kat's able to talk to him and talk a bit more about their work and how things came to be in their time. And so I was able to spend a bit of time developing the personality that a lot of the robots have, talking about why they work for the humans and really what their motivations are for existing. Throughout this scene, I wanted Kat to be a little bit weirded out with the way that the robot is talking about himself and the other robots. Annie seems to be fairly used to talking to him as another creature. She uses a lot of humanizing words like children and servitude or reward, and even refers to their resting place as a tomb. And the robot himself does his best to shrug those terms off, differentiating himself from what he considers his creators, the humans. And the reason I wanted Kat to seem kind of dubious about all this is because, as a mechanic, she should see these creatures as nothing more than appliances, really, in the same way that she's seen the other robots up till now. They're machines that have been built for a specific purpose. And while she can still make friends with them and want to help them, she's never really given too much thought to the theory behind what they might personally want or what motivates them. And here, after having made the discovery through Diego's work, she's starting to understand that the robots, especially this ancient robot, is something a lot more than just an appliance. There's something going on here that is causing Kat to think of the robots as something more than just machines that can be turned on and off. And so despite having made some new discoveries that will lead to an advancement in her work, I wanted Kat to feel a bit shaken by the whole experience in this chapter. And as I said earlier, it's something that I wanted to talk about for a while, and I wasn't sure just how interesting I'd be able to make this chapter, since it is just the character standing around talking to some dour old robot. But luckily, the readers seem to enjoy it, and a lot of people seem invested in the development of the robot and Kat's storyline as a whole, especially when Robot comes sneaking up and acting all strange about things, like it does here at the end of the chapter. And it looks like I forgot to draw a bonus page for this chapter, so that's that. Come back again for chapter 34, Faraway Morning.